Many things are still a baffling mystery in our world. Science doesn't quite yet have all the answers or all the keys to unlock the secrets of our universe. Every day, somewhere, someone sees something they can't explain. Something that we're told is not there, is not real, or simply doesn't exist. Too many reliable people tell of sightings and encounters with the unknown. The myths, legends, folklore, and old wives' tales are usually based in fact and in reality. When a witness to such a strange encounter finds no one believes them and faces ridicule from people they trust and love, they turn to us, the Alabama Bigfoot Society. From the heart of the South, this is Alabama Adventure. And here we are ready for another Alabama adventure. Tonight we talk about something that we've talked about very little, and that's black panthers. We receive black panther reports from all over the state. I've seen them. Lots of credible people have seen them. We've even got some photos of them I'm going to show you a little bit later on in the video. Now then, to tell you everything about the black panthers that we have come in contact with and that I know about them may take a little bit, so this video may run a little bit long. And I have had some people to say, you know, some of your videos and some of your explanations get a little bit long. So I'm going to do this in two parts. You can watch part one, that's the condensed version, or you can fast forward and go on into part two, which that will be the detailed version. So anyway, here's part one.
Part one is, we have received a lot of black panther reports from the state of Alabama. I have seen them, a lot of other people have seen them too. And here's some pictures real quick, you're going to look at them.
Now we'll go on into part two. It's a little bit lengthier, it's a little bit more detailed, but anyway, I hope you enjoy tonight's video on black panthers of Alabama. Okay, now the first black panther report or story or sighting that I ever received was back in the early 1970s, and it was in Randolph County. It was on County Road 24, and this is a picture of the house now. As you can tell, the yard is kind of grown up and it's not in as good a shape as it once was back in the 1970s. But there was this elderly lady that lived there at the time, and she had a black panther sighting one morning. And that's what I want to tell you about, the very first sighting that I ever received. What it was, she had a lot of cats, and she always fed her cats in the morning. Her and her husband, as long as he lived, they always had a garden in back of the house, and at the end of this garden next to the woods was where every morning she carried what was left over, like from breakfast, to pour out to the cats to let them eat it. And that's what she did one morning. They had it was in the early springtime, and the garden hadn't got that tall, the plants in it hadn't. But anyway, she said that she carried the table scraps out there to where she always fed the cats next to the woods. And said she just turned around and came back in the house, and said just a few minutes later, as she always did, she looked out the back window that was in her kitchen. She was washing dishes, and she looked out the kitchen window toward where she had poured out the what was left over from breakfast. And she said always her cats were out there eating, but said this morning her cats wasn't there. There was this big black cat out there that she described, and that's what she called it back then, was a black panther. And I remember her telling some other people in one of our local grocery stores at the time, and a lot of people were laughing at her and making fun of her. And she walked on outside finally when she got through telling her story, and I walked on out there with her and asked her would she tell me what she saw. And what I just said was exactly what she told me, but I believed the lady. I went over there later that day to see if I could see any tracks, but where she poured out the stuff for the cats to eat, there was a lot of pine straw on the ground, so you really couldn't see any tracks or anything. But that was the very first Black Panther sighting that I ever received. Okay, now on this Black Panther sighting report, I'm going to tell you kind of where we're at. This is a code name that I use for the place, but if you're in lower Clay County, it won't be any trouble to find. That's a big rock right there on the side of that hill where the road's been cut through. And I call this Red Rock. And here's the road going back up that way, and right down at the bottom of the hill is an intersection. And you probably can't see it on the video, and I can't see it the way the sun is so bright today and everything. But you can see that mountain over there. There's a valley between this tree line and that mountain. And at one time, there was one of the largest Indian villages that was recorded in Clay County was located right there. So I call them the Red Rock Indians. Anyway, we're going to go right on up here just a little ways, and I'll tell you about a Black Panther sighting that was made by the Black Panther lady. Okay, now what we did, we came on up the road a little ways where we get out of the sun, so to get under a shade here, and that's what I'll do to tell you this real quick. The Black Panther lady lived in this particular area of Clay County for a long time, and a lot of her family still lives here today. And she was telling just right back down the road here, right out here you can see the road, and well, you can't see it for that little hill, but anyway, take my word for it, it's out there. Anyway, right down that road just a little ways was where she was living at the time that she had her about first sighting of a Black Panther. And she had been at work one afternoon or one night, and said she got in home about 10:30, 11 o'clock one night, and as she pulled into we got some gnats up here, so I'm going to have to fan gnats every once in a while. She said as she pulled into her driveway, she saw something running across the yard, and she kind of backed up to where her lights would be on it a little better. And what it was a mother Black Panther, and it had 2 cubs. And she saw this, and she didn't get out of her car that night. She backed up the driveway, and she went up to her mother's house and got somebody to come back home with her so she could get in the house safely, because this mother Black Panther with 2 cubs was in her yard, and that was right here in this is pretty much southern Clay County. That was her first Black Panther sighting that she told me about. Okay, now this sighting was a cougar sighting, and we're in the very tip end of Tallapoosa County. I kind of fan around so you can kind of have an idea of the location. We've just crossed the Tallapoosa County line right back down the road there, and that's the direction that the man that made this sighting was coming when he saw this cougar. And he said as he came up the hill there, said the cougar crossed, let me get turned back around, said the cougar crossed about where this sign was, and it ran across the road in this wide spot, and he said as he came up the hill that he pulled over pretty much about where my Jeep is, maybe back down this way a little further. But he said he actually, it wasn't as green and grown up in those woods when he made this sighting as it is right now. But he said he actually watched the cougar kind of trot on up into the deeper part of the forest. And I'll turn back up this way to kind of give you an idea of our location. So if you're over this way and you want to find it, if I can keep out of the road long enough that I don't get run over, because I know several people are trying. Let's see who we got here. Yeah, there's about the second time that they've been by wondering what I'm doing. If they stop and ask, I'm going to tell them that Walmart's fixing to build a big Walmart supercenter right here. But anyway, what I want you to notice is up the road there a little ways is a tower, very large tower. That tower's in Goldville, and it's been there for a long time. But that will kind of give you an idea of where this cougar crossed the road right here a few years back. Anyway, there's the tower, and there's the sign. So now you've got an idea of where this cougar crossing was in the very tip of Clay County, close to Goldville. Okay, now we're back down here again today at Eagle Creek, and this is Eagle Creek Baptist Church, so you'll know where you're at. It's on Highway 49, and let me get this white car because they really want to get on video, so we'll put them on. Anyway, this Black Panther sighting came from right here at the church at Eagle Creek, and the person was coming up this road. This is Highway 49. They were coming up this road, and as they got to that little hill right there, they saw a Black Panther, or what they believed was a Black Panther, come from the far side of the church. Now here's the corner of the church and a little driveway right there, and that's kind of where it ran out from, right along there where those trees are. And it ran across. Well, I guess they really want to get on, so we'll put them on. Yeah, we'll be glad to put you on when you turn around and come back. And I don't know, they may be. We'll just keep an eye on them. They want to get on video so bad. That's fine with me. We need something to take up the time. But anyway, the Black Panther came from right the other side of the driveway there, near those trees, ran across the road here in this curve, ran out through the cemetery there on the hill, and the guy said he had put on his brakes and was watching this thing, and said it kind of went over where that little access road is, and as he was sitting, almost come to a stop. Let me get this one too. We don't want to leave anybody out. But he said as he came to almost a stop and he sort of pulled over in this little road right here, he said the Black Panther never got in a big hurry. It just kind of trotted over that first little hill right there of in the cemetery, and across that little access road, and then it went out of sight. So that was an Eagle Creek Black Panther sighting. And now on to Zana. I know you've been waiting on Zana because there's always a lot going on in Zana, but there's also been some Black Panther reports from Zana, so let's head on up that way. Okay, now we're approaching the swamp area that I call it in Zana, and I want you to also get a good shot of that crack in my windshield. That's kind of a factory crack. A lot of Jeeps have that same crack in the windshield. But right here, as you come by the police jurisdiction sign, you'll see two guardrails on either side of the road. And I'll try to get a shot of that if I can. But I know I can't stop here because there's always a lot of traffic. Okay, now this first Black Panther sighting that I received from Zana was several years ago by a man who worked in Alexander City, and he was on his way home from work one night. He didn't get off to work until late every night, and it was usually around 1, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning whenever he came through Zana. And that's the way it was this particular morning. It was between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. He said as he neared the guardrails, from the beam of his headlights, he could see that on the other side of the guardrails up the road, something was moving around, some kind of dark shadow figure like. Anyway, he came on, he was traveling east back toward Daviston from Alexander City. Let me get all that in there so we'll get everything clear and you'll know which way he was going. But anyway, he said as he came through the guardrails, this thing walked out into the road, and that's when he could tell it was on all fours. And it was pretty tall, so he put his brakes on, and he was coming to a stop as he came through the guardrails. And he said then this thing just walked out into the center of the lane and stopped and was looking at him. And he said then the headlights shining on it real well. So that's when he could tell that this thing was a cat, a Black Panther, because it had a very long tail. And he said he had really slowed down a lot. He said he was going about 55 or maybe 60 miles an hour up through there that night. But he said he had really slowed down a lot, almost to a stop. And he said when he came to a stop, he said he was within 8 to 10 feet of this Black Panther. and said it wasn't making any effort to get out of the way or to get on off the road, that it didn't seem frightened by the headlights or the vehicle coming up the road toward it. He said what gave him kind of a funny, eerie feeling was this cat was standing broadside in the road, and it would kind of twitch its tail back and forth every once in a while, and like it was thinking about maybe jumping on him or something like that. But he said what really gave him the eerie feeling was he felt as if this cat was looking him right directly in the eye. As I said, he said it was standing broadside, but similar to this, but it had turned its head looking at him. And once again, I'll say it again, he said he felt as if this cat was looking at him. And he said it seemed like he sat there for a long time, but he said it was probably maybe 10, 12, 15 seconds. And said then this cat finally decided, I guess, that it would get out of the road. And he said it got in absolutely no hurry at all and walked on across the road on into the darkness where his headlight beams weren't shining. But whenever he told me how tall this cat was, it could have been looking at that truck like it was going to jump on it or something. He was driving at the time. Let me tell you what he was driving, and then I'll tell you how tall this cat was. At the time, he was driving a 1995 Toyota Tacoma, four-wheel drive. And you know how a four-wheel drive truck sets up high off the ground anyway, especially the hood and cab, that type of stuff. And he said, as he sat there looking at this cat for 10 to 15 seconds, he said this cat's back was as tall as the hood of that truck, and its head was actually taller than the hood of the truck where it was looking in through the windshield at him. But anyway, this was the first sighting that I received of a Black Panther from Zana. Now, this second Black Panther sighting is very similar to the first Black Panther sighting as far as the time of day and the location. Time of day was also after midnight. This man said it was between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning that he had been to Alexander City that night, and he was on his way back toward Daviston. And as he came through the swamp area, through the guardrails, said he really didn't notice anything till he got to the very end of the guardrail, and he was also headed east. He said as he passed the end of the guardrail with his headlight beam, he saw something laying on the side of the road eating something. Said he didn't know if it was eating something that had been killed like on the road, or a road kill, or if this thing had managed to catch something and kill it. But he could tell that this cat, he could tell it was a big black cat that he described as a Black Panther. He said it was laying on the side of the road. I know sometimes you've seen a cat whenever it's eating, how they will lay down like on their stomach whenever they're eating something. I've seen this a lot of time with the cats that I've got. He said that this was what that cat was doing. It was laying on its stomach, and it was eating something right by the guardrail. Now, whether somebody had thrown out something that they had left, like a hamburger or something like that, it could have been eating that. But he said he went on, as he went past this thing, said he could tell it was a big black cat, and that it had a very long tail that actually came out into the road. And he said he was really surprised that he didn't run over this thing's tail. But he went on up the road a little ways to where there's a dirt road on the right, and he said he turned around there because he wanted to go back to get a better look at this thing to see what for sure what it was. And anyway, he went back down there and said as he neared the guardrail where the thing was at, he said all of a sudden that this cat jumped up and trotted across the highway, completely all the way across the road. It didn't go on into the woods on the side that it was laying on. He said that it turned around and came back across the road, and said that's when he could tell that it was a Black Panther. Now, the third Black Panther sighting that I've received from Zana came from almost the same location. This sighting was reported to me by a man one night right after he made the sighting. He's an owner of a hunting club in northern Tallapoosa County, and they had been at the hunting club house, him and some other members that night, and decided they wanted to run down to a food land, which is probably 7 or 8 miles from there, to pick up some things that they needed for to fix breakfast with the next morning. So anyway, they had been to food land, and he said it was around 9 or 9:30 that they were coming east also on Highway 22 near the swamp. He said he was about 100 yards or so from where the guardrails begin. And he said he also wanted to make it plain that he was in a new Ford F-150, and it had very good, very bright lights on it, and they really illuminated the road, and they really illuminated this Black Panther when it ran across the road in front of them. He said they were coming up the road from New Site, headed toward Daviston. As I said, around 9 to 9:30, and he said this Black Panther came running across the road. Said it wasn't running real fast, but it was kind of loping, I guess you would call it, as it went across the road. And he said it did have an extremely long tail that he noticed that very well as it went across, and also the passenger that was in the truck with him also saw it that night. But that's been 3 Black Panther sightings at almost the same location right there at the guardrails. All of them have been after dark, and I believe that that location right there is a trail that the Black Panthers possibly use whenever they're moving around in Zana. Okay, now this Black Panther sighting happened at Red Hill, Alabama. I think there's 2 Red Hill, Alabamas in Alabama, but anyway, this Red Hill, Alabama is right below the Lake Martin Dam. I'm not sure of that highway number. I'll have to get it when I get on up the road a little further. But anyway, the reason I'm showing you this little section of woods, the lady that told me about this Black Panther sighting said she had been to Wetumpka, down to the casino down there one night, and said she had been down there all night playing and gambling and stuff like that, and said it was early that morning when she left to come back home. And she lived in Dadeville, Alabama. So this was the way that she decided to come in that morning. She said as she was coming along this road, and let me sort of swing back around so I can let you look down the road there while I'm telling this. This is the road that she was coming down, and she said it was just a little after daylight that morning as she was coming down this road going home. She lived on the east side of Dadeville, and that's why she just decided to come this back way to miss a lot of traffic, people going to work that morning out on the main road. But she said as she came right along through here, and I'll get back on this road, as she came right along through here, she said this Black Panther just walked out in the road in front of her a little ways down the road, and said, of course, she put on her brakes, and said as she neared the Panther in the road, it walked on across, and it walked into some woods like this right over here that had been recently thinned. And she said it just walked over there to the edge of the tree line and turned back and looked at her. Said it looked at her broadside for a pretty good little while, and said she pulled over on the side of the road like we are right now, and said she just looked at this big cat. Said it was a big black cat. Said that it was a panther, and said more than likely that the back of this panther would have been as tall as the hood of her car, and she was driving a Toyota Camry at the time. So that was a pretty tall cat. And she said it just stood over there and watched her, and said she probably sat there 3 or 4 minutes and just looked at this cat, and it looked back at her, and said, well, she decided it wasn't going to run off and it wasn't going to do anything, so she just cranked up and headed on home because it was around about 5:30 or 6 o'clock that morning. So she needed to get on in home because, like I said, she had been in Wetumpka all night and was kind of tired and ready to go home. But that was a Black Panther sighting near Red Hill, Alabama. Okay, now for this next sighting, we're back in Clay County. We're at Hodge Creek Road and County Road 79 intersection. Shine, that's Hodge Creek Road right there. And what it was, here's the intersection of County Road 79 and of course Hodge Creek Road right across the road there, but I wanted to get a picture of that sign. If you look down this road, you'll see that first signpost. Then on down there a little further is another sign on the left side of the road from looking down this way. And that's what we're going to be talking about in just a moment. I'm going to run down there and I'll get a picture of that sign. Okay, now we pulled on down here so we get a good picture of this sign so you'll know about where it is. This little community is actually called Sykesville. It's in southern Clay County. But anyway, we're on County Road 79 right now. And what happened, the man was coming along this road one afternoon about 4:30, 5 o'clock. It was a little bit right before dark, and he was on his way home from work. And he said as he neared this sign, he saw a cougar run across the road from the left-hand side over to the right-hand side, and said when it got in the ditch over here where the sign is, said it just sort of made a leap and dove off in the bushes, and he came on up there and said he put on his brakes so he could stop to get a better look at it, but said it had already disappeared into the undergrowth. So that was a cougar sighting near Sykesville, Alabama. Okay, now this encounter is going to be encounter with a cougar, and it involves a very good friend of mine and his dog. If you'll remember, in a few videos back, I mentioned that whenever I was a young boy living at home, that we raised horses, and this particular pasture is the same one that we rented that I'm going to tell you about. Of course, at this pasture was a pretty large barn, because you have to have a barn whenever you're raising horses and that type of stuff. But this friend of mine, that's what he had rented the pasture for, was to put horses in, because he worked a lot with cows and that type of stuff. And he had this dog, this a border collie, and her name was Daisy. Anyway, Daisy was a cow dog, and her job in life was to help round up cows so he could get them on the trailer, or if they were on the trailer, she would help get them off to when they got over to the sale barn, or to a pasture where somebody bought them or whatever. But anyway, Daisy always rode on the back end of the truck whenever he would go over there every afternoon to feed the horses and to check on them. And that's what happened this afternoon. Anyway, he pulled up in front of the barn, same place he always did. He got out of the truck and went through the gate of the pasture out there to call the horses up, because he wanted to feed them and check on them, make sure they were okay and everything. But anyway, as he was doing this, Daisy made her usual run out through the pasture and circle, and then she came on back toward the truck. But this afternoon, rather than jumping on the back end of the truck as she usually did, sometimes she would keep running around and sort of circle the barn or keep running around the pasture while he was feeding horses and that type of stuff. This afternoon, Daisy ran into the barn for whatever the reason, whether she smelled something and knew something was in there that wasn't supposed to be, or whether she just by accident ran into the barn. That was where she wound up. And he said just a few seconds after Daisy went into the barn that he heard something going on in there. It sounded like a fight. It sounded like it was tearing the barn down. He said whatever it was really getting after each other. So he turns around in the pasture and starts coming back toward the barn. And as he gets near the barn, Daisy and this cougar come rolling out the front door. They have done tangled up and they're having a big fight. Cougar wasn't supposed to be in that barn, and I guess Daisy, that was part of her job, I guess, was to get cougars out of the barn, because that's what she was doing this afternoon. And whenever he saw that this thing was a cougar, he took off to his truck to get a gun to kill it, because he didn't want this cougar to kill Daisy, or to hurt or to kill or hurt one of his horses. So anyway, that's where he was headed. He was headed back toward the truck, and Daisy and the cougar were still going at it across the pasture. Anyway, he said about time he got to the truck and got the gun out and started back to where he could try to get a shot at the cougar without hitting Daisy. They both took off running down through the woods. There was a little block of woods over on the back side of the pasture, and that's where they headed. And he said just a few seconds after they went into the woods that he heard Daisy bark one time. It wasn't a bark like she was in pain. It was kind of a bark like yelp like was more of what it was. And then he took off running. He thought maybe this thing was getting the best of Daisy, so he took off running over there to see if he could help her or to see what was going on. But anyway, he didn't ever find Daisy. But anyway, he hunted and hunted, and he called and called for Daisy to way on after dark that night, and of course Daisy never responded. He hunted her all day the next day, and on about the second day, or maybe the third, he came by my house and told me what had happened. So I went back over there with him, and we both hunted Daisy and called her, and we never got any response out of Daisy. So what we think happened was this cougar killed her, and we have been told, I'm not an expert on cougars, but I'm sure that somebody out there could tell us one way or the other, or if what we've heard is right, that if a cougar kills something and it's not hungry or it doesn't have young at the time, that it will sometimes bury whatever it kills or carry it high into a tree, so it will be there for whenever it does get hungry or whenever it needs it. And it's very sad to say, because I knew Daisy very well, that this cougar probably killed Daisy that afternoon. And that was a cougar sighting in southern Randolph County. Okay, now this next Black Panther sighting comes from the town of Talladega in Talladega County. Man emailed me and told me this story about a Black Panther. He said that this happened on a Sunday morning, said it was very cold on this particular Sunday morning, and he got up around a little after daylight to go over to where he went to church. Said he always did that when the weather was cold and everything, go over there to make sure the heat was running and that it would be comfortable by 10 o'clock when the people began coming in. And he said it was just after daylight this morning, said it was just beginning to get good daylight. And as I said, he lived on one side of town. Where he went to church was on the other side of town. So he had to go through the middle of town. He had to go by the courthouse in Talladega County. And he said just after daylight this morning was when he passed in front of the courthouse. And said he just looked up at the courthouse like he always does whenever he passed by. And he said this Black Panther was trotting across the courthouse lawn right after daylight. And he said he slowed down when he saw this. And of course, nobody was behind him. The traffic was hardly any traffic out there at this time of morning. And he said this Black Panther trotted across the front courthouse lawn and turned and went down the side of the building, and said the last time he saw it, it was going down the street, which would be Highway 77 that goes through Talladega. So that was kind of an unusual sighting that a Black Panther had come into town up there, as large a town as Talladega is. But he also said that there was a lot of logging going on around Talladega at this particular time. So I'm sure that the loggers had ran the Black Panther out of the forest, and it was just looking for a safe place. Anyway, that was a Talladega Black Panther sighting that we had. Now, as you know, I keep people's identities very secret here at Alabama Bigfoot Society. And by me saying that, I want to tell you this story that was told to me by a very reliable source, and I certainly will not reveal his name. But he told me a few years ago we were getting several reports like Black Panthers crossing the road and being seen in pastures and people's yards and this type of stuff down there. And this man told me that the reason the Black Panthers were so numerous up there around Zana, above New Site and Daviston area, was that a man that lived in Jackson's Gap at one time, I think he still lives there now, but he had come in contact with Black Panthers. He had purchased some. I don't know if he had purchased them legal or through the black market or what, but he was raising them, and apparently it was against the law for him to be raising the Black Panthers like he was. And this man told me that he was about to get caught. So one afternoon, he just loaded up all his Black Panthers. He had some male Black Panthers, and he had several female Black Panthers, and he had some that had cubs. And this man claims that this man from Jackson's Gap actually loaded them up on his truck in cages or whatever, and carried them up to Zana and turned them loose up there. And that's why there were so many Black Panthers up there, that was where they were just put out to live, to get by the best way they could. And that's very possible. Also, I've had several older people in the community around New Site, Daviston, Zana area, that have told me that there is a legend about Black Panthers that has been around for years and years. Well, really over 100 years, back in plantation times, because that's what Zana used to be, was a large cotton plantation. And according to the legend, there was this voodoo queen that turned herself into a Black Panther and did what she needed to do while she was, but she didn't know enough to turn back into a human form. And that's where some of the Black Panthers come from, was from this legend. It's a very interesting legend, and maybe we can go into it a little bit later on the next video. If I went into all the Black Panther reports that I had, this video would probably be a couple hours long, and I want to try to keep it as short as I possibly can. But anyway, that was just some legends and stories that's been told to me about Black Panthers in the Tallapoosa County area. Okay, now we're bringing this video on to a close, and in this final segment, I have some photographs of Black Panthers that I want you to look at, and I'm going to tell you a little something about them. Some of them were made by people in their vehicles going down the road, and they just happened to catch one. Some of them, most of them have been made by trail cams, game cams, whatever you want to call them. But anyway, let's go to picture number one. This is the first Black Panther photograph that we received. This panther, it was in Tuscaloosa County. It was out in a field that looked like it had been logged in the past year or so, and it was kind of standing on a stump out there whenever this person was going down the road. Matter of fact, in the picture, if we don't get it edited out, you can actually see the rear view mirror on their car. But what I want you to look at is this cat is two things in particular. I'll point them out. It's a very large cat. You can tell it's a Black Panther out there. And if you would look at the length of his tail, you can see the tail coming down beside him. It comes off the stump. It goes all the way to the ground, and then it curls up on the end. So that's a very long tail, and that is a sign of a Black Panther. Also, I want Dorothy, who is editing and putting this video together for me, to zoom in on this cat's face. And after she gets that done, I want you to notice this cat's eyes. It has what Native Americans call sky eyes or ghost eyes. So to the Native Americans, this would be a very spiritual, very powerful animal with these particular eyes, and both of them are like that. So it could very well be a spiritual Black Panther. But I just wanted to get a close up on its face so you can look at its eyes. This is very unusual. That a Black Panther has sky eyes or ghost eyes, whatever you want to call them. But it would be a very powerful totem to a Native American who has a Black Panther as a totem animal. All right, let's go on to the next one. Okay, now this picture was taken by a trail cam. You can tell it's after dark from the background and everything. This picture came from Clay County, Alabama. It's a very pretty cat, very nice, healthy looking cat. And I want to come back to that in just a few minutes because I have something else I need to tell you about Black Panthers before we leave. I would put it in the next video, but I feel it's very important and I want to put it in this video. But if you will notice, you might say, well, this cat has the sky eyes or the ghost eyes. I don't believe it does. I believe that was just the flash off of the camera that made its eyes look a little brighter than normal. But notice and keep in mind what a healthy coat, muscular, fat cat that this Black Panther is. And we'll go on now to the third Black Panther. Okay, now this photograph of this Black Panther was made in Madison County, Alabama. If you will notice, it's a large cat, has a long tail. It was made on weather looked pretty foggy. In this area, they had been doing some logging, and you can kind of tell that this area right here has been cut a pretty good bit. But notice it's a panther, and as I said, it is from Madison County, Alabama. Okay, now we're at photo 4. This is a cougar. This came from Jackson County, Alabama. As you can tell, if it was real dark, you might think it's a Black Panther. But this particular cat was moving in the daytime, and you can tell by the color of its coat that it is a cougar. And as I said, it's from Jackson County, Alabama. Okay, now this is photo 5. This shows a cougar sneaking up on a doe deer. I believe it's a doe is what it looks like. But anyway, this photo came from an old trail cam that used film. The man, whenever he had it developed, he sent me a copy of the picture, and I call this picture Last Moments of Life, because I'm sure that cougar pounced on this deer shortly after this photograph was made. And now I want to go back to the Clay County Black Panther picture. Okay, now what I want to tell you about is a while back I had a man to see me, and this is a story that he told me, and it concerns Black Panthers as well as coyotes as well as deers. He said that several years ago, the deer population here in Alabama had gotten so out of hand that the state decided to bring in coyotes to try to control the deer population, which that really didn't work at all. That was a genius plan. But anyway, he said now, after the coyotes got in here and have wiped out things like quail and other small animals, I was trying to think of what else they have wiped out. They have wiped out a rabbit population pretty much. They have certainly wiped out the quail population. I haven't seen a quail in years. But anyway, we'll go on and talk about the Black Panthers now. But after the coyotes were in here for a while and they began to breed, and now they have gotten out of control. So Black Panthers have been brought in by the state, or so I was told, to control the coyote population. Well, the coyotes or the Black Panthers, neither one are doing their job. I guess Black Panthers be the next thing that get out of control. But anyway, he told me that Black Panthers were being turned loose by the government to try to control coyote population. And after I got this picture, it dawned on me what this man had told me a while back, and I believe he was telling the truth. I want you to look at this cat. I want you to look how shiny this cat's coat is, how healthy it looks, how fat it looks, how muscular it looks. Its fur just looks perfect. This cat, I would say, has had vaccinations and has been fed somewhere. This is just not your average run-of-the-mill wild animal. An animal running wild is going to look a little rougher than this because of what they eat. They're going to pick up parasites and that type of stuff, and it's going to dull their coats. It's going to make them look bad. It's a lot of times make them lose weight, and a lot of times things they pick up will actually kill them. This is an extremely healthy-looking cat, and it's an extremely large-looking cat. So it's very possible that this cat was one that this man told me that was turned loose by the government. Now, I can't prove that. I'm just telling you what somebody that should know what he was talking about because of the position and the job that he held. But anyway, just look at that cat. That is one more healthy cat. And so that brings our Black Panther and Cougar video pretty much to an end now. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but I have got on a different hat right now. And I had somebody to ask me earlier, said, "Where did you get that hat?" And I said, "Well, me and another friend decided we'd go down to the bus station this afternoon to eat lunch." And I went in the bathroom and I found it in the commode at the bus station. And I got it out, and after it dried out, it fit pretty well. Anyway, as I always do, I'd like to say hello to my granddaughter Madison. I would like to tell you that the Alabama Bigfoot Society is run completely out of pocket, and if you could see your way to make a donation, it would be very much appreciated. Just go on our website, and you'll find a place on the front page to where you can make that donation. And as I said, it would be very much appreciated. We'll be looking for it, and we'll be waiting on it. Anyway, if you like what we're doing down here in Alabama, we hope you give us a like on this video. And if you do like this video and the others we've done, we hope you subscribe to the channel. And I guess I'm trying to get my ZZ Top look. I have got to let my beard grow out just a little bit. But anyway, with all that being said, we'll be looking for you next time on the next Alabama adventure, getting close to Bigfoot.